everyone, Alexa Dunn here, and today I am going to be talking all about the basics of traditional publishing. What is traditional publishing and how do you get traditionally published? The biggest distinction between traditional publishing and self-publishing is actually right there in the name. So with self-publishing, of course, you are going to be publishing your book yourself, which means you're wearing all the hats and doing all of the things that a publishing company would do. So traditional publishing is having your book published by a publishing company. Publishing companies come with a lot of advantages, the first being that they have been around for a really long time. Most of the big publishers that you've heard of have been in the industry for decades, and so they have really good relationships, they know what they're doing, and they can take your book and launch it out into the world with the best possible hope of readers reading it and it being successful. The big edge that traditional publishers are going to have is distribution. Distribution is actually not done directly by publishers. They're not going right to the bookstore and saying, here's the book. They work with distribution companies whose job is to print and get books to bookstores and libraries, etc. So traditional publishers have long-standing relationships with the major book distributors in the industry who supply all of the bookstores that you go to, the libraries that you frequent, and so on. So by pursuing traditional publishing, you are not only working with a team of people to make your book as good as it could possibly be, alleviating that burden from you if you don't have all of those skill sets, whether that's editorial, page setting, design, marketing, publicity, sales. They are going to do that for you, and they are going to use their skills, knowledge, and experience, relationships with distribution to get your book where you want it to be. Now, the caveat of this, which you've probably heard of if you have looked into traditional versus self-publishing at all, is that in exchange for this, the publisher takes most of the money. They do pay authors, and authors are paid with advances and royalties, which I go over in depth in my Publishing Money 101 video. But when you buy a book from a retailer, the majority of that money is going to go back to the publisher because of all of the work that they put in to the book to get it out into readers' hands. This is a caveat that doesn't really bother me whatsoever as someone who has pursued traditional publishing and is being traditionally published. I feel I am being paid a pretty fair wage for the book that I have written, and my publisher is the expert in doing all of the things that need to be done to turn my story into a beautiful book and get it into the hands of readers, so doesn't bother me. But I know that is something that a lot of people grumble about. Now, to be traditionally published, you need a literary agent. What is a literary agent? A literary agent is a business partner. They are also an advocate. They partner with writers of books to present their books to editors, get them sold, and then negotiate in their best interest to get the best possible deal terms, which can include money, things about rights, distribution, and so on. So this does mean that there are several levels of gatekeepers that you have to go through in order to be traditionally published, to have your book come out and be in bookstores. The first big one is literary agents. To get a literary agent, you have to query them. That is writing a pitch letter, which you're going to email to agents that you think might be interested in representing your work. Some agents do still do snail mail, but they are in the vast minority. For the most part, you're going to be sending an email query. There are a lot of parts to a query and a basic formula to follow. I also have videos on query formula. I will link all relevant videos below that fall under the topics of what is traditional publishing that I'm going over. So you're going to send your query with some sample pages for your book usually, and if an agent is interested in working with you, then you are going to go on submission to editors. So editors will only accept manuscripts from agents about 99% of the time. There are a few publishers that you may have heard of that do accept unagented submissions, but they are in the minority. And generally speaking, because an agent is an advocate and they're going to negotiate for things in your best interest, even if a publisher does accept unagented submissions, if you choose to follow that path and you do get an offer, then you should get an agent and have the agent negotiate your contract. That's just my opinion. There are different ways to do it, but generally speaking, I believe that having a literary agent is the best possible thing that a writer who wants to be traditionally published and have a good career can do. One note I want to make before I jump more into submission: your book has to be complete before you query an agent. So most of the work for traditional publishing, it's really front-loaded, and I think that's what overwhelms or disappoints people, that there's like a checklist of things that you have to do and none of them are easy. So you have to write your book. You have to complete your book if it is a fiction, a work of fiction. You need to edit it. You need to write that query. You need to query agents. It can take time to get a literary agent for your book because your work needs to be ready. It essentially needs to be good enough because agents are vetters of quality storytelling, and not just quality storytelling, I do have to say, marketable and sellable quality storytelling. There are always going to be books that don't fit into the traditional market, and just because an agent or a publisher isn't interested in that project doesn't mean it doesn't have merit. But that is a whole conversation for another day. If you can get an agent, then you're usually going to revise your book some more with your agent, and then you're going to go on submission. And submission, it's the next step, and it's a wonderful feeling to have an advocate on your side who says you're awesome and your book is good, and they're going to send it to editors that they know, that they've had lunch with and whatnot, and tell them that this book is amazing and they need to read it immediately. But submission can take a really long time. It can be disappointing. A lot of books don't sell on submission. So submission is by no means magic. I'm going to go way more into depth about submission. So the plan for this month, this is Traditional Publishing 101. I'm going to have another video all about kind of publishers and imprints, so you have an idea of like what the publishing houses are and what their sizes are and what you can expect. Then I'm going to be talking about submission basics and secrets of submission. So this month is all about traditional publishing and submission. So this video really is just kind of that 101 broad overview. So let's say you get through submission and a publisher wants to buy your book. So the next step is that your agent is going to negotiate. That is, again, what makes them awesome. So your agent will negotiate and take care of that stuff for you, and then, ta-da, you have a magical book deal. Now you get to wait 18 months to 2 years before your book comes out. So traditional publishing is not for the impatient. Things take a lot of time. This is because it takes time for people to edit your book. You go a couple of rounds on it. I have a video about editorial stages. Once you have a traditional publisher, there's developmental edits, there's line edits, there's copy edits. Then you're going to get past pages and you're going to look at those, and someone has page set those, and there could be some back and forth there. They'll print arcs and people will read them, and there's, leaving time for review and for publicity and marketing to do their job. Also for the sales team to sell in your book to those bookstores and libraries, promote your book with teachers. Bookstore placement is not 100% guaranteed in traditional publishing. I do have to concede that. I should say bookstore placement in Barnes & Noble is not 100% guaranteed in traditional publishing. Barnes & Noble can say no to carrying your book, but that's why you want to be with the best possible publisher with the best possible sales team, because their job is to make sure that that doesn't happen. So that's why it takes so long. Occasionally, there are situations where it doesn't take as long. I am a weird, rare situation. My book is going to be coming out 13 months after I got my book deal. That's called an accelerated publishing schedule, or having my book crashed. But it is not the norm. Far more normal is 18 months to 2 years, though I do know some people who are waiting 3 years between getting their book deal and their book coming out. It's a long game. So that's really traditional publishing in a broad overview. As I mentioned, there's so much more to cover within all of these subtopics. I'll link any relevant videos below for any of the topics that I've already made videos on. Drop any questions down below in the comments about anything about traditional publishing, and I'd be happy to answer. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you find out as soon as I post a new video. If you liked this, please give it a thumbs up and I will try to make more videos like it. I hope that answered all of your questions, and as always, everyone, thank you for watching and happy writing.